All right, welcome, welcome. This is Campfire Talk number 5, Green and Dusty, Lessening Our Environmental Impact on the Playa. I'm your host, Epiphany from the Camp Support team, and we have a fabulous group of panelists this evening. I'll start by introducing you, and you can unmic yourself and say hi. Unmute yourself and say hi. Brace leads the Green Theme Camp Community Power Team. He's active with Burners Without Borders and works on renewable energy projects at Playa Ranch. Hi, Brace.
Hello, how's it going?
Great. Thank you. Claire leads the blast team for the Green Theme Camp community. On Playa, you might find her sitting for guests at the Zendo or jumping on trampolines. Hi, Claire.
Me.
And we have Badger, is the lead for the Renewable Art team and is working on the Blast project for the Green Theme Camp community. You can find RAT or RAT's Solar 101 course on Hive.
Hello, Lee.
Is Badger here? Oh, great. Hi.
Hi.
All right. Charles is a TCO for It's All Made Up, IAMU, which is known for Sky Bar and running the Washington, D.C. Burning Man container program. He's also a regional
How's it going,
contact.
everybody?
Hi. He's a regional contact for the D.C. area and is co-lead of the National Burning Man Community Container Program. Then we have Lee Mershon. He's a great leader, TCO for Square One Camp, burning every year since 2011 and passionate about efficiency. For Burning Man, he's working on creating and promoting storage and transportation solutions that serve multiple purposes like sleeping space, hosting interactivity, and supporting art. So welcome everyone. Did we get Tim in? Not yet. Okay. Today around 5:45 or 5:40, you'll have an opportunity to discuss environmental sustainability in breakout sessions. Then we will all come back to the main room for further discussion, so stick with us through that. So for our first topic this evening, Claire and Brace are going to give an overview of the Sustainability Roadmap 2030 and the Green Theme Camp community and Blast. So take it away, Claire and Brace.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I think we have a deck coming up. Yes, thank you so much for joining us, the Green Theme Camp community today. We are going to give that overview and slide Omaha 22. That's it right there. The overview of the Burning Man Project's 2030 sustainability goals is for Burning Man to be better for the ecology of the earth than were it not to exist. In other words, what they're saying is they want Burning Man as a whole to be a regenerative force for the planet as opposed to what it is today. Slide. I think theme camp organizers know that this is not going to happen without theme camps not just taking part in the effort, but leading the way in a lot of different things. One of the most consistent questions that comes up every single time, what's the one big, huge thing our theme camp community, whatever, can do? What's the thing that we can get the biggest bang for the buck for? Slide. And that's really shifting our mental focus. We spend a lot of time thinking about radical self-reliance, slide, when really we should be thinking about communal effort and civic responsibility, because Burning Man is not going to get regenerative until we really champion those 2 of our 10 principles and embed it in everything we do. Example, slide. Everything that we can do to reduce our footprint involves communal effort and civic responsibility, such as slide, carpooling. If we cut the vehicles going to Black Rock City in half, we reduce our overall emissions by more than 1/3. And in a lot of cases, that's literally just adding another burner in the passenger seat or filling up your RV. Instead of having 2 people, have 4. If you've got 4, add 8. Take buses, Carpool. Slide. We can definitely encourage our campers to do that, but that's not going to get us all the way to regenerative. Slide. That's where we come in. We're the Green Theme Camp community. We are 6 infrastructure teams working on the BLAST standard for theme camps, which Claire's going to get into. We're working on creating how-tos for projects that you can implement at your theme camps. We're also creating content in different ways, educating, and as a part of the community, which has been meeting throughout the pandemic, we even have a spin-off group or 2. Slide. And now Claire's going to tell you a little bit more about BLAST and what it is.
Yeah, thanks, Brace. So BLAST stands for Burner Leadership Achieving Sustainable Theme Camps. And it's a green theme camp certification that provides a framework for what an ideal theme camp might look like, green theme camp, along with some accountability for reducing environmental impact and support for camps as they plan different sustainability projects. And like Brace was saying, we really think this should be a collaborative effort where we're learning from each other and experimenting and continuously improving each year. Next slide. So you might have heard of LEED certification for green buildings, and we're thinking of BLAST as the Burning Man equivalent to that, like the green certification for theme camps. Next slide. So these are the 6 different focus areas for BLAST and the different infrastructure teams that are part of the green theme camp community. So we have power, waste, food, water, shelter, and transport. And I'm going to pass it back to Brace to tell you about some of the things that the power team has been working on.
Next slide. So one of the things that we're working on is not just the design of a renewable energy system that you can implement at your camp, but how to fund it and how to get your campers to build it and how it can replace other infrastructure in your camp, like your shade structure. One of the things that Joshua Tree loves to say, all shade can be solar and all solar can be shade. Slide. One of the other things that we do that you have probably seen or run across in your email, Solar 101, an amazing course that was put together by Bruce and members of the renewable energy team, but mostly Bruce, is available on Hive right now. If you want to learn more about how solar works and how you can work on your own solar project in the camp, that's a great resource. That's one of the things that we as a community are trying to do, is put more education out there. And slide. We also really love the fact that spinoff groups have happened. One of the spinoff groups from the power team is the Renewables for Artists team that Bruce can tell you a little bit more about. But basically, we know that art is really front and center out there on Playa. If you can show art using renewable energy, you can bring it back home to your theme camp or where you live. That's why that's so important, why we love the fact that RAD exists and is really a huge hive activity. Want to see that in each of the other infrastructure teams. Slide. I'm kind of cranking through these. I apologize if I'm going too fast for you. But our goals as a community for this cycle of the construction of Black Rock City, one is to launch the BLAST standard, get it across Playa, put the word out about it. Claire will tell you a little bit more about that as we close up. We also want to debut one new project, which we call Playa Standard projects, that any theme camp can implement from the designs that are put forward out there, in addition to educational resources and things like that. We hope to have one for each of the 6 areas. The one the power team is putting together a solar system. We'll debut that at Bequinox, hopefully. And ideally, one of our kind of stretch goals is to have a Playa Tech Expo, where we'll be showing how all of these systems work, not just having a build out there, but being able to test it and get it ready in time for Playa this year. And I think, Claire, you're going to take us home from here. Slide.
Yeah, so what's the next step? Well, we have a theme camp interest form for BLAST, which we can share the link for. And if you fill that out, we'll send you the BLAST application sometime in March, and we can go from there. Some of the teams also have weekly meetings you can join on Hive. The power team I know has a meeting on Hive. And finally, you can start talking to your camps about sustainability. After 2 years off, this is a really great time to start rethinking some of your usual routines as you plan for Burning Man and And maybe you don't do things the same way that you've always done them in the past, but figure out a way to burn more sustainably. And that's it.
Great. Okay. Thank you both. That was really informative. I see some questions coming through, and just rest assured on the chat, we have several camp support team members gathering those up, and we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end of our time together tonight. But first, we do want to hear from you in the form of poll answer. If we can get our poll, we would like to know, what is the biggest emitter of carbon on the playa? Is it burns, transportation, generators, or our farts? A little bit of extra methane gas. What do you think? Okay, so most everybody got this right. The answer is transportation. Awesome. Thank you, Sander, for that poll. All right. Our next topic is going to be on getting more specific about greening our burn. So Brace has just a couple more slides to help us with the most frequently asked questions.
Thanks so much for that. A lot of you, when you registered, had questions that were very similar in nature. And so I decided to try to see if I could pool them all together and just get them all out of the way really quickly. So slide. First one, carbon offsets. A lot of people say, hey, let's just buy carbon offsets and let's take care of it that way. And carbon offsets are great, but they're not 100% ready for prime time. A lot of them are funding exploratory projects. A lot of them are very startup in nature. And even if we do all of the things, even if we're perfect in all of the projects that we do, we're still going to need them to offset what we do. So I just want to frame that particularly. Second question, which actually was already asked in the chat and was asked many different times, slide. Is solar affordable? Yes, it is. Even with all the things happening in the world, the supply chains, the prices for solar panels, the prices for the electronics behind them to turn solar energy into power that you can use are all coming down. It's a wonderful time in solar power technology right now. The pilot project that our group has delivers 16 kilowatt hours every day with 10 kilowatt hours of storage for $6,000 out the door. And you can use it for 10 years. Match that with what you have for generator usage in your theme camp. Next slide. Another one of the most common questions is, what's the most sustainable way to get to Burning Man? In short, Burner Express. As many people as possible in a bus or an RV, but not everybody has access to a bus or an RV. I personally come from Michigan and I take the train. I bike from my house to the train station in Grand Rapids, take that train to Chicago, and take the California Zephyr from Chicago all the way out to Reno. Those basically, if you can take some form of mass transit to Playa, that's the most sustainable way to get there, even if it's just carpooling. Next slide. A lot of people say, what's the most meaningful way that we can reduce our carbon impact? And in general, it's just reducing the overall things that you know are very consumptive. For example, RVs. RVs consume a lot of power. They're inefficient. They can be made efficient if you transport a lot of people in them. But let's face it, a lot of times RVs that you see out on Playa are one or two people cranking their air conditioning all the time. And that's the vehicle that they drove to Playa. Reducing the amount of air conditioning or pooling the air conditioning that you have into one central area instead of many different air conditioners all about there. Reducing gas generators. We know the ideas of how we can meaningfully reduce our footprint. Next slide. A lot of the things that come up are, hey, isn't Burning Man, don't we do a lot of sustainable things, alternative energy, blah, blah? Yes, we do a lot of those things, but that's not an excuse to continue the excesses of what we've been doing in Black Rock City for so long. This is a picture of the Fly Geyser. A lot of stuff that Burning Man supports out at Fly Ranch is that experimental lab. the Laggy initiative that was a part of what was going on at Fly Ranch is that experimentation that's going to get us as a movement to regenerability, but that doesn't mitigate our own personal responsibilities as theme camps to burn more sustainably. And I hope batching all of those questions up have focused our conversation a little bit more. And I'm going to turn it back to Epiphany and the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brace. So Brace, you've been leading the power team. How realistic is it to go solar in camps?
It's very realistic. And a lot of people think in terms of, oh, well, I've had, say, a 25 kilowatt generator. There's no way I'm going to be able to replace that with solar. And you're right. You're not going to be able to replace a 25 kilowatt generator going 24 hours a day. But what you can do is reduce a lot of your loads. A lot of the appliances that people bring out to Black Rock City are stuff that we've discarded from our houses that are very inefficient. There's also a lot of things about distribution that are inefficient, really rethinking the power grid in your camp and thinking about how you can do a lot of the same things more collaboratively, more sustainably, will allow you to reduce your overall power draw to the point where you can go 100% solar in your camp. A lot of people have looked into solar systems in the past. Prices still continue to decline. There's a huge demand for solar. A lot of the systems used to be incredibly complex. We used to think, how do you have a charge controller and inverter? The system that we're using combines those two into one and is a lot more reliable than the two things together. The prices are coming down. The tech is really exploding out there. It's an amazing time to be out there. And we look forward to experimenting it within our group. And we hope that we can have a blueprint for you to bring a very meaningful solar system to replace some of the shade in your camp. It's very possible.
Good to know. I agree. I run a freezer off of a solar setup and enjoy ice cream all week long. So, Charles, my next question is for you. So, do you have solutions for gray water that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, gray water is the dirty, challenging problem that we all have, and we're happy to report that after 9 or 10 years of experimentation, we finally came up with something that works pretty well. I'll share a link to. There's actually Profiles in Dust did a short documentary about the solution that we developed. It's actually pretty simple. It is triple pass filtration of your gray water. And the main thing in there is just making sure that you're getting all the particulates out, and then putting all that filtered gray water onto evaporation fields that nobody can get to. And the best way to do that, a lot of people bring U-Hauls, some people bring containers and things like that. If you can get that off the ground, that's basically the solution. 2019, our 150 person camp, 2018, our 150 person camp ended up with 20 gallons of gray water by the end. Some of us were out at Renegade and sort of built a new system in about 2-3 hours, and ended up with, I think, 10 or 15 gallons by the end for about a 60 person camp. So this is work. I'll drop the link in the chat here, and you can check it out. And you can also reach me through the website that the link is on.
Does it work in any conditions on the Playa?
I can tell you it worked in all of them. Obviously dust storms are going to, you need the sunlight, for that, but in hot, arid air, even some wind is moving along the evaporation process, the warm wind. Obviously, this isn't something that's going to work as well at night unless you have warm evenings. There's always evaporation happening, but it's especially it was kind of shocking, actually, how quickly the evaporation happened. And now that's just with a plain field. You can also, we've all seen those like wind turbine kind of things that will dip some water absorbing material onto a wheel. That will increase the amount of evaporation that will happen. But I would say, give this a shot first. And it's a very inexpensive system. It's a very simple system to put together. And the way we've designed it, the way we've designed it, we'll be publishing some more detailed sort of an IKEA version of how to build an IKEA manual of how to build this kind of solution. We'll be doing that in the next month or two. But the new solution even comes with hot swappable gravel and sand bags to make it very fast and easy to keep the flow of the evaporation and the filtration happening. So we'll be sharing that out in a little bit.
Right on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bruce, tell us about the RAT team.
Well, RAT, Renewables for Artists team, our goal is to help artists get off of the generator. And we propose to do that with assisting the artist design their system. Also, education is huge for RAT. So that's where the Solar 101 came from. We also, and it's on Hive. Also, we have a couple other courses there. We have the symposium on there that happened, the Renewable Energy Burner Symposium. And also solar powered art on the Playa. There's a paper on that in Hive as well. And we meet every Wednesday, and I'll post a link to that. It's in Hive. You just go take a look and go to the event page, and you'll find us there every Wednesday. And right now we have 10 artists that we'll be working with. We just did a little vetting process to see where our bandwidth was and who we could help out. And it's coming along. It's coming along, and we hope to have other programs along the way as well. More education, that's key. Also, I was doing at Gerlach Solar 101 Plus, I call it, and that went very well. I think they're going to have another course or two in March, April. You can contact the Gerlach Workforce Development Center. They're working on classes out in Gerlach. So that's it.
Okay. And I see some links coming through in the chat. So check there for some more resources. Lee, tell us about your shelter in a box truck.
Well, the concept came from the idea that anything you take to Playa that you rebuild every year should only be done ideally once. Also, anything you take to the Playa ideally should serve multiple uses rather than one. So, and we do this with containers and box trucks and trailers, but pretty much anything that we use to transport something to the Playa eventually becomes a room, either for an interactivity aspect or for people to sleep in. With a box truck, for example, we paint the roof with something called Solar Flex, reflects most of the sun, almost 99% of the sun rays back up, and it's pretty much the same effect as installing an air conditioner. Then we take R6 insulation that people build yurts from, we line the whole truck from the inside, and then we build rails from 2x4s where we can put plywood as shelves and create bunk beds. The whole thing is modular, but when we get to the burn, we transport it, and in about an hour, it turns into a room where 6 to 8 of our members sleep in. And we treat anything we bring to the Playa with that mentality. I can expand a lot more of that in the breakout room, but that's basically the concept where you think about anything that you bring can be multiple things.
Okay, so we'll look to you for further details in the breakout session here shortly. Frog, why is carpooling our most important CO2 reduction?
Well, we've been working also, in addition to the Playa, we've been working with the regionals. So we've found what Nick said earlier is that just carpooling can significantly reduce our carbon impact. And since that's one of the big goals, we're trying to achieve that. So the top 3 things in the transport focus area is, number 1, carpooling, so ride with your mates. And then Nick also mentioned public transport and burner express. So anything that you can do to share vehicles. And then I'll add one footnote to that, which is all about stuff. And Lee alluded to stuff there when he began to talk about shelter, but we have to bring all this stuff with us, from food to water, a lot of things that are heavy. So the more you can consolidate your stuff, think about renting a truck. That's a really good idea. But ultimately, the most important thing is share stuff. So the more you can share with your campmates, the better. So, if everybody brought a frying pan, that would be a lot of weight to carry out to the pot. So, share what you can and reduce your stuff. And overall, when you reduce weight, you reduce volume, you reduce consumption. So we're all here to reduce consumption. Back to you, Epiphany.
Great, thank you. Yeah, if there's one thing that I'm going to take away from tonight, it's that I can give someone a ride in my bus to Burning Man and make an impact. All right, so question for everyone. What are the 3 most important green things that camps can do for waking dreams? Lee?
I think Brace mentioned this, but more than anything, it's a mental shift from the idea that radical self-reliance need to apply for everything, and focus more on communal efforts and group work to reduce the carbon footprint, because ultimately radical self-reliance equals radical waste. And there is ways to reduce that.
Charles?
To kind of riff up what Lee said, so for example, in several cities around the United States, there are Burning Man community container programs. And what that means is camps or regional groups will organize through OSS, and if you want to get something like that started, you can reach out to me as well about that. But what everybody does is we load all of our big format artwork, we load all our gear, our infrastructure, our bins, the ubiquitous black and yellow burner bins that you see everywhere. They all go onto an intermodal container, and that goes by rail most of the way to Black Rock City. It is fractional the amount of carbon that actually gets pumped into the air, into the atmosphere, because what we've done is we have, while everybody's being sort of radically self-reliant, we have consolidated in a communal way all of the things that are going to Playa in the most carbon optimized mode of transportation that is possible. So and also it's massive cost savings on this, which makes art more affordable. It makes everything more affordable. So there's a lot of wins that can be gained if we all just sort of get together and work communally on things.
Right, thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, the idea of don't worry about replacing the generator. Start small. Look at your load in your camp. What are you powering up? What can you do to decrease your load? And then think about, instead of replacing the whole generator, think about starting with something simple. Work your way up. You don't have to replace everything the first burn. You can start test it out, learn how it works. You can buy it off the shelf. You can build it yourself. There's a bunch of different options to that. But the key is to understand what your load is and what you can do to save energy. For example, get rid of those incandescent light bulbs, which I don't think anyone uses, but go to LEDs, reduce your load, and now solar starts becoming more approachable. Take small bites and work your way up. So,
Nice, thank you, Brace.
Yeah, if I could just bring it home, I think if I had to summarize 3 most important things, one, like I said, is just shifting your focus. And let me just give you an example. So my very first burn that I went to was out in Deep Playa. Headlamp ran out of batteries. And I was just lucky enough, Playa Magic, somebody had 2 of the batteries that I needed in their pockets so that so I wasn't a dark wad for that evening. Every single burn after that, I brought a packet with 4 times the batteries that I could have possibly needed just in case. And I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in that. But think about that. Think about 4 times the stuff you need for whatever it is, times 80,000 people. Think about all of the extra transportation waste behind it. And then everything you take out to Playa kind of gets toasted out there. You're probably going to chuck it when you get back home. Think about all of that additional waste and all of that additional impact. So one of the things that Burners Without Borders is doing this year is having a rechargeable battery exchange with recycling. If you run out of batteries and you have rechargeable batteries, boom, just toss them in a bin, take 2 other rechargeable batteries outside of that bin. This is what I'm talking about when I say we need that shift to collective action and civic responsibility. That's how we're going to get there. That's the most important thing. Beyond that, maybe in addition to that, transportation, just lowering the total transportation footprint. If we lower the amount of stuff we have to bring out there, Sparkle Bitch had a great point. Maybe it's not opening up a 7-Eleven, but being collective about having materials out there, increasing our gifting, increasing our planning for that sort of thing to reduce our overall transportation footprint. And the third thing that Bruce touched on is measuring our impact. A lot of people have brought really big generators to run really big sound systems. They think they use 25,000 watts, but when you actually hook up an amp clamp to them, they use 2,000, a tenth of the power that they think they do. Measuring your overall impact is the third most important thing that you can do. Attach a kilowatt to everything, weigh out your pack. Measuring your impact now before you go out to Playa is the third most important thing that we can all do for this Burning Man.
All right, get your data. Claire.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing, which is what we've been calling ecological acculturation, and that's educating camp members. So the more people in your camp who are aware of sustainability and thinking about how to go to Burning Man in a more sustainable way, that really carries over for the rest of the year as well. And if you're measuring your impact and people just have a better idea of what they do and how that impacts the environment, that's like a longer range kind of change in our culture.
Great, thank you, Claire. Charles?
Just to kind of riff off what Claire said, about a year and a half ago, when the Green Theme Camp community was getting organized, we did a big symposium of a lot of these sort of really innovative green solutions as sort of a kickoff to this whole thing. And as we were all watching the presentations, there was a pattern that emerged in all of these best of class ideas and implementations, and that was people started with the values. They really wanted to begin with greening their camp, and that was the intention and the spirit of it. Those values got translated into design requirements, right? And then the design requirements got implemented into the systems. But there was a fourth piece that the acculturation that Claire was just mentioned, where basically, so at IMU, for example, the way we did this, so we implemented this simple gray water system. But the other thing we did is, if you use water at camp, you have to handle your own water. And so that created an awareness of everybody. That's not just, oh, you turn on the tap and we have some lovely water here in the middle of the desert. It's a miracle. No, if you take a shower, you have to go process your own gray water. So in terms of the acculturation piece, sort of closed the loop and kind of brought everything together, where the ethos and the spirit of it got implemented into the system side, but then ultimately it was a lived reality. And what was fascinating about that is, if you looked at the water use in the camp, and again, measuring, it doesn't have to be super complicated, but you can't change what you don't see, right? What we noticed is the more that our camp members became acculturated, the more the water use actually stabilized or went down. And that was a real eye opener to us on that. But that's a story that we heard repeated again and again, like in power and in transportation, like just that if it became apparent, if you were measuring and it became acculturated, you could almost normalize, you could get to a new normal. And as Claire also mentioned, we're going back after a couple of years, kind of a fresh start, fresh perspective, this is a wonderful time to be bringing up these ideas and saying like, let's go for it, you guys. You know, we have to do something. Might as well be something awesome, right?
Yeah, that's why we're all here. We want to be in the know and tell our friends. Frog, one more comment, then we're going to go over to breakout rooms.
Sure, I'll add a closing comment. We were working with the Kiwis last fall before their event was canceled. And one of the challenges that they had, we've touched on here, is, well, if we're self-reliant, then you know, that means we should bring all of our own stuff. And I think, you know, part of it is that the principles are not absolute. And we have this principle, which we've talked about some things right here, which is the principle of gifting. And it's really important to remember that part of what we're doing and part of why this team is here, the Green Theme Camp team, is, you know, we're here to give a gift to Mother Nature and to our community. So think about gifting as an important part of sustainability and part of our whole culture. And that's part of what we want to share is that part that we find in ourselves to be self-reliant, we can convey into a gift to others and to our community. So I think that's a really important thing for us to remember as we go forward.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I'm always redefining gifting. All right, so we're going to go out into breakout rooms. They'll be about 20-25 minutes long. After that, we will return to the main room to debrief and do Q&A. So don't leave, stick with us. The first breakout room will be Solar 101 and Rat with Bruce, and Power with Brace. So Bruce and Brace in breakout 1. Breakout 2 will be Water and Waste. And breakout 3 will be Food, Shelter, and Transport with Lee and Frog. All right, so you can choose which room to go to anytime you're ready. And I think we're getting our rooms out. Yep, okay, great. If you don't immediately see the options, you can look at the bottom of your screen next to the chat. There might be a box with 4 little squares, or it could also be in 3 little dots next to more on the bottom of your screen. You can return to the main room and choose another room if you like as well. Okay, welcome back. I hope those discussions were enlightening. I can't wait to hear more about them, and let's debrief a little bit. So someone from the first breakout, Solar 101 and Rat, can you give us a little bit of information about how your discussion went?
Bruce, did you want to wrap it up for us? Sort of summarize?
Yeah, well, there was some good discussion on batteries and panels and the environmental impact of that. We had one gal who talked about not everyone has the solar and renewable, and we understand that. Also, discussion on parts and building lists. I do want to say that on every Wednesday, you can find this in Hive on the event page. It has the RAT meeting, which starts at 11 Pacific time, goes till noon. And then at noon, we go to the power group. So if you want more information on solar, you can join us there. And I will put a link in chat. Thanks.
Nice, great, thank you. Breakout 2, Water and Waste. Charles was in there.
Yeah, does anybody want to summarize? You want me to do it? Well, I'll just say I was super impressed with the back and forth. People got some great affirmations about solutions. One of the big things is a lot of people were recommending getting away from doing all the big dishwashing at Burning Man. A lot of camps had reported switching to paper plates, and yes, and then burning them instead of how much carbon it would take to transport a gallon of water to Playa, right? but there's also the additional benefit of like, you know, what's not going to cause food poisoning because you didn't clean your plate enough. A burnt paper plate is not going to cause food poisoning because it doesn't exist. So there's a lot of upside there. And also there was some very, it was very heartened to hear that one of the camps was really getting into just looking more holistically at the relationship between overall efficiencies. It sort of came through the lens of looking at water, but once you start to look at water, you know, water doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Water, the plastic containers to hold water actually take 3 times the amount of water to produce those plastic containers than they actually contain. So you have to look holistically at what is going to be the overall most efficient thing in the cycle of life and ecology of water. So it was really great to see so many people really thinking about this and being very generous about the solutions.
Yeah, I mean, if you get food poisoning and need that helicopter ride out, that's going to be a lot of.
That's a lot of carbon.
All right, thank you. So breakout room 3, food, shelter, and transport. Lee?
We went on a few tangents beyond transport, a lot of philosophy, but we touched on 3 main topics, which unfortunately one of them doesn't seem so attainable for now. The train for freight and passengers as close as we can to the Playa. We do have somebody in the group, Keith Privet, who had a lot of insight on trains, and it seems like maybe we'll get there one day, but not anytime soon. Something that we didn't have an answer for, but we discussed and we all seem to wish that it would happen, is the Burner Express for Build Week. That seems to be.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? I will look into that. I will, like, we were one of the first camps to charter a Burner Express. I will actually reach out to the Burner Express people. That's a wonderful idea. That would solve a lot of problems for us as well.
Yeah, I think why not solve the problem for the builders? And the last topic that we discussed is how do you centralize the camp equipment for transport and storage without giving some people more of the workload? Because if you do drive a truck, then now you have 2 people bringing everybody's stuff. And so how do you go greener without sacrificing self-reliance? And there isn't a clear answer, but we had a discussion, and ultimately you can balance the workload in each camp in a way that won't affect the culture. And that's not a blanket solution. Each individual camp will have to find the way that works for them. But for the sake of going greener, we'll have to, have that discussion within each camp. And that's the 3 topics we have.
I'll add one more topic or a story that Generator shared with us, which is really about gifting, what I mentioned before. So she and her friends set up a little team that greeted people when they came off the Burner Express bus and welcomed them to the Playa, helped them get their luggage through the dust. So that was one of the most marvelous stories in our breakout. Thank you, Generator.
Nice. Thank you for passing that along. All right. So we have a member of the camp support team here, Regular, to help us with our participant questions. Do we have any questions, Regular?
Yes, let me get myself off mute. Yes, we have a lot of questions here, and maybe I'll just kick it off with what very general question, and this is for the panel here. What some of the best bang for the bucks, like in terms of reducing environmental impact? Can you guys name maybe 3 things that you would do that you think that camps could do to be more sustainable?
Charles?
No more disposable plastic bottles of water, for the love of God. Go with bigger containers. Obviously you want your campmates as they're getting to and from Playa, have some water with you, just for safety reasons. But moving up to 55-gallon containers, you can get water delivered to you. I know that's not self-reliant, but is way more efficient. And like I say, like every disposable plastic bottle of water requires 3 times the amount of water to produce the empty plastic bottle than it contains. So the more that you get reusable and larger water cisterns, that's a huge, easy thing, inexpensive thing to do. Who's next?
Raise your hand.
I'd say one of the best things you can do, especially if you're a camp which has a history and expects to have a future, is to get a container and store it at the Black Rock container storage area. It's so easy. It takes a huge amount of effort away from having to get everybody together, load it, drive it up, unload it, reload it, drive it back, unload it. You just unload it once, load it once, and then one diesel truck takes it and gets rid of it. So that was a huge energy saver for the camp as well as on carbon emissions.
And they're very helpful, showing up during the year, mid-year checks and good access, and everybody who has access who can go up and back and needs to do chores and work on equipment, and you can do it right there in Empire, and it's just handy. But also that might be resolved in 360. You know, they may provide some of that same kinds of storage, but Empire is really good for that too.
Thank you. Regular, do you have some more questions for our panelists?
Sure. We had a bunch of questions that all related to transportation, and we hit upon some of this, but I think the general question that a lot of people are having, you know, if I were to summarize most of these, people want to know kind of what is the most efficient way to get onto the playa? Would it be to jump in an RV with a bunch of people? Would it be to take, you know, a sedan full of 4 people and then have materials transported in a truck? Really, you know, kind of what is some of the panelists' overall thoughts on what is the best way to get to the playa if you're driving?
Enlighten us, Charles.
We've already discussed it, but just to reiterate, if you live in a container city, send all of your stuff on a container, and everybody can use the Burner Express from a growing number of cities. There's like right now, until hot air balloons or airships become a thing, Burner Express is going to be your most efficient getting bodies onto Playa. They're ubiquitous now. The other real upside is, what's awesome is just sailing through the 8 hours of gate line, because you're in a Burner Express that has a direct lane to get into Black Rock City. Another 8 hours for you at Burning Man, if you just if you go with the most carbon minimized transportation solution. So can't say enough about it.
Great, thank you, Frog.
Yeah, I'll just add to that if you have a large camp, then a container makes sense. But if you don't have a large camp, then seriously think about renting a truck to consolidate your stuff and free up seats in your cars for passengers. So I know that if you're like me, you've got your vehicle crammed full of stuff. So the more you can share and consolidate, rent a truck. And then the other thing is, the truck, you can park it and get it out of the way. And you can also use it, as a storage unit while you're on Playa. But so think about trucks for smaller scale to medium-sized camps.
Okay, thank you. Regular?
So the next bit of questions kind of are focusing on solar and renewable energy. And I think generally people are wondering, what's the best way to get a camp started up? And I mean, is there a way to rent solar? Is there a way to share resources? What is the best way for some camps who are thinking about going solar partially or fully to kind of get that? There seems to be a few questions, kind of questioning what the environmental impact would be, buying solar that's only being used once a year. And, is that really better for the environment than, just kind of using gas and other forms of electricity generation? Does the panel have any suggestions on how to get like a smaller camp and even a medium to large size camp often using renewable energy in an efficient way?
Yes, yes, very, very much so. Smaller camps. For one thing, very key, educate yourself. Learn about solar. There's a lot to it. It's a very simple thing to put together. You can also buy systems, complete systems, plug and play. You need to do some research on that sort of stuff. Also, as far as, I just drew a blank. Nick, you got it. Tag team.
I mean, what was so? Yes, because the systems last much longer than generators. I know people talk about renting them. Honestly, and I know this may be a heavier lift for camps. The rental market for solar kind of collapsed. It's not going to be there for Waking Dreams. Go out, reduce your loads, buy and build your own system, and find somewhere in your community to put it.
Also,
or reuse it year after year, or talk to us at Burners Without Borders. Maybe we can put it at Fly Ranch and then you can bring it back. I know that there are larger cooperative questions that, yes, we are working on, and that the organization is working on. The Burning Man Project is thinking about how to do this cooperatively. But remember, they have to build Black Rock City. It's not going to be there yet. But I think you can definitely make your theme camp regenerative if you're providing renewable energy 50 weeks out of the year and then bringing it back for your camp for 1, 2, 3 weeks out of the year, depending on how long you're out there.
I would like to say too, if you're a smaller camp, think of those panels and those batteries as your emergency backup. If you want to be self-reliant in a sense, that's what I have my stuff. It's too small to really package up and take somewhere. And so that is my backup system. Also, I have found some places that rent trailers that have the panels that fold out, the whole bit, the batteries, the controllers, the inverters, the whole bit. In California, I found a few companies. I have not found any in Reno. I know that was one question that was brought up, but they do exist, just not a lot of them. But it's not tough to build a small system either, or buy the plug and play.
Doesn't sound very hard to do. I know I could do it, so probably anyone could.
Yeah. Do you guys have any suggestions about guides, for helping a camp go 100% solar and just generators and other tips and tricks? That was another question we had.
Guides as in education?
Yeah. Anything that the org has put out or?
No, Brad has done the Solar 101, which is on Hive right now. And like I said before, I am teaching a 101. I believe I will be teaching that class again coming up in Gerlach, which doesn't help everyone. A lot of the stuff that we're doing with RAT, we want to get on Hive and provide educational opportunities. The internet is full of solar stuff too these days. When I first started, it wasn't so much so. Now a lot of solar information out there. There's forums, there's assorted groups, there's videos, some great videos out there done by some people. The information's out there. Batteries, you can find all kinds of information on batteries. That's not a problem. Solar, wind is more of a problem if you want to go into wind, but solar, there's a lot of information. It just takes time to go through this information and try and find the wheat from the chaff, because there is a lot of garbage out there too. But take a look at Solar 101.
And more specifically to the question, the 6K system that I referenced in my slides, we are building that right now. We're going to take it to Bequinox, the LA regional, in April, take pictures, test it out, basically run it through its phases as a theme camp project and publish our results. That's what all of the infrastructure groups, one of their goals is to take the tech, build it as if like under theme camp normal conditions, and publish their results as publicly as possible. That's one of the information and how-tos are one of the big things in the Green Theme Camp community. And we're going to be showing you more tech with those other infrastructure areas as possible.
I have a question about that. So if you're setting a leadership role, which I don't know what your responsibility with Burning Without Borders is, but where is the responsibility Burning Man Project to take on and set an example, let's say for Center Camp? How are they going to incorporate solar? How are they getting off generators? Because that's a huge camp with a lot of generating power. And where is their example to help people take a lead in the community so that people can say, hey, they're doing it? And I only say that just from working, we've done several years on Earth Guardians and have spent a lot of time camp to camp, talking about with diesel with people and gas and purchasing gas and getting around. And there's very few people who have taken upon themselves to use solar on top of their RVs, but people are interested in it. But that wasn't our job to talk about it. We're just trying to tell them how to get their gas off the Playa. But what is Burning Man Project's goal this year? Like, are they going to set an example camp out there to say it could look like this? Because it does take money.
I can't speak to that because I don't work for the org. The Green Theme Camp community is an initiative of theme camp organizers. We came together as theme camp organizers to try to do this because we thought that it was important. Even these campfire talks are a community effort. There are a lot of community efforts out there. I can't speak to what the org is doing in that respect. And I think the org is supportive of our efforts. I have a burningman.org email address, but they're not paying me to do it. I know that there are, like, I talk with Leeway, I talk with other people in DPW Power. I kind of like hear the plans for what they're doing. And I do consult with Chef and other people about the Solar Cooperative up at 360, and they are doing that. But I can't speak to their efforts. And two, I really want to emphasize that the Green Theme Camp community is theme camp organizers coming together. We're not the org. We're people just like you that organize theme camps.
I would like to point out that the org has started a solar team that's going to be an official group. So that has started. Also, the man is supposed to be powered by solar this year. So that is in the works. At least that's the discussion at this point in time. So it is happening. It does start at the top. I believe it should.
Thanks, Bruce. So we have our panelists are interested to capture all of your questions and input tonight. So please enter whatever questions or input you have to the chat and stay on mute. We have probably time, I think, regular for one more question tonight, and we'll start to wrap up.
Yeah, so the last one I would say is in the gray water trash management topic. And one of the combined questions I would say, what are some of the best practices for larger camps to manage waste removal, and other best practices for composting some of the waste as well?
Anybody want to jump on that one? Lee?
For our camp, we don't have the lead for waste here, but for our camp, I encourage people to bring whatever they can that isn't water in aluminum cans, because we take them to recycling camp. With composting, we put them in 27-gallon totes. We take them out of the Playa and we handle it then. It's a lot easier if you dry it on Playa. So we bring nets that we dry everything out. It makes it a lot of a lighter load.
And I noticed PETA is saying send our compost to Ideate.
Yes, they do run a compost program. I don't think they can handle the whole burn, but it's a growing program. So maybe that's what their aspiration is eventually. But we have used them before. It's a great program. Sometimes if you don't do it perfectly and you leave some stickers on the food, whatever, the member that's taking the box to the compost program might end up being there for a few hours. So you better read the rules.
All right, Claire?
They are expanding the Idea Compost program this year. And so there should be different spots where you can bring your compost to rather than just the Ideate camp, which makes it a bit easier to be involved in composting.
Yeah. Okay, well, that will bring our evening to a close. I want to thank you, all of our panelists, for your participation and time and preparation for this evening. Thank you for our camp support team volunteers, especially PETA, this evening's fabulous producer. Please take a moment to fill out our feedback form and put it on your calendar. The next Campfire Talk will have information about hubs and is on a Saturday morning. So it's on March 19th next month. It's titled Ask a Placer Number 2, the Nitty Gritty. So everybody show off your tutus one more time, and please feel free to unmute and say goodbye. Bye.
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 Feliz Valle.
Everyone. So good.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. You're amazing.
Ta-ta.
Thank you
Cheers.
all.